The Sooners aren't done, though. They added another wide receiver in the transfer portal. Let's discuss him coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners added another wide receiver to their depth chart through the transfer portal and one Isaiah Sategna out of Arkansas. This was a productive player who finished second on the team in receiving for the Razorbacks, and a Razorback offense that was surprisingly really, really good this year.
Yeah, Bobby Petrino had them boys balling, and Sategna was one of those components, and he's a good special teams guy. Now, he is not the type that we have been going after as of late. He comes in at 5'11" at roughly about 180 pounds, which is way off from the 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" guys that we've been chasing. But when you need someone that can handle special teams, punts, and kicks offs, yeah, you kind of want to make sure you get a guy that has some experience. And Sategna has actually returned some for touchdowns. So there's more of a comfort level with him coming in at wide receiver at 5'11", being able to return the ball in a comfortable level and not have anybody concerned about drops or muffs, because, man, we had a lot more muff punts than I would have ever expected over the last couple of years. And I think Sategna can help alleviate a lot of that problems. Really cool thing, too, about him, John, he was a top 200 prospect when he got to Arkansas, number 26 wide receiver in the country. That's pretty darn good. And he started off 15 catches, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns his first year playing in every single game in 2023. So he also doesn't fit the typical older player, but he does have 2 years of experience. So only having 2 years left of eligibility makes him be one of the older players on the roster, too.
Yeah, so you add him to Javonte Gibson, Keontez Lewis, and it's a guy I think that provides you with some inside-outside flexibility. He's a guy that can play some slot behind, Deion Burks, mix in with Jacob Jordan at slot. But I think touching on the return aspect, I think that's really where his value comes in and where he's going to be able to see the field early for the Sooners. Billy Bowman's off to the NFL, which means Peyton Bowen's going to be seeing a more significant load of snaps this next season. I need my man off the return duties. I need him focusing primarily at safety. So Sategna gives you that guy that you can put back there returning kicks. You talked about having returned a touchdown for a kick. He did that back in 2023 when he averaged 12 yards per return on punts, averaged 21.7 yards per return on kickoffs for Arkansas. And this past season, he only had 3 kick returns, but he averaged 17.3 yards per return. Now, it's a lost art a little bit. But we've seen, and we saw it against LSU, right, how quickly a game can turn on a kick return. And if you got a guy that's got that dynamic ability to maybe create a big play in special teams, how much that can help and boost your team and create a momentum shift. So I like the addition here. Again, it's not going to be one of those guys that keeps one of your youngsters off the field necessarily, but it's a guy that has an ability to go make some plays in the offense.
Yeah, he just adds an additional component and layer to what you're trying to do. The biggest thing has been that we would like guys to be able to go out there and, be game changers, be out there and just make plays, be gamers, as they would call it, and just do something. Sategna is one of those guys that can do that. Like, we tried the Peyton Bowen and Billy Bowman experiment. It just did not work out. Peyton Bowen, it just didn't look like he was very comfortable with fielding the punts and trying to return them. Nothing really opened up, or he didn't create much of anything. But at the same time, like you said, his snaps are going to increase because we need him to actually make plays on defense now. And that to be the focal point. So you have him out there playing at the free safety spot, and you move Robert Spears Jennings up to strong safety and let him do the standard blitzing or the run stuffing that he's really good at doing. If he does not decide to forego and go to the pros, you have him come back. Yeah, you want him to go ahead and play towards the runs to give him the strong and let Peyton just go out there and do the things that he did in high school, where he would just be out there looking around, and if he sensed it, use his spidey senses to go out there and catch passes out of nowhere, knock down passes, or get interceptions. We want him all over the field and playing a very critical role like that. So yeah, I would prefer Peyton Bowen not doing the returns anymore. Give me Sategna. And then he just adds to that, like I said, that wide receiver room. Him, Deion Burks, gives you 2 dudes who are very much speedsters that once Mateer figures out the timing with these dudes, he's going to be able to launch it. All he's got to do is get rid of the ball. He puts the ball in their hands. They can make stuff happen in space. And the beauty of having a quarterback like John Mateer is you have to respect him in the pocket, because if he decides to scramble, he probably gone. And I don't care what level you're playing at, SEC, Pac-12, Big Ten. He was doing that to just about everybody. So that's what you want to prepare yourself for. So, John, when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at now the depth chart of who will line up when you got him, Giovanni Gibson, right? You've got Keontez Lewis. We're probably going to grab one more wide receiver is what I'm sensing, that one more is going to come in. And now then you've got a lot of evaluations to do on how you want to make sure you rotate everybody, because even though you're bringing all these players in that's got production, the question is going to be, how are you going to be able to play all these guys while not hindering the development of your young ones?
Well, I think you're going to see more wide receivers on the field. You're going to see a whole lot more 10 personnel where you're running 4 wide receivers and a running back. You're going to see a lot more empty with no tight end on the field, and you're running 5 wides. I think that's going to be some of the Ben Arbuckle air raid component that we see with this team. And I think some of the thing that we wanted to see this year, given the wide receiver depth that Oklahoma had, you just never got a chance to, because all those dudes were injured all season. So you never got a chance to see 4 or 5 wide situations where you had Nick Anderson, Jaden Gibson, Deion Burks, Andrell Anthony, Jaleel Farouk all on the field at the same time, just creating matchup nightmares for the opposing defense. Well, in Ben Arbuckle's system, when you go empty and you go 5 wide, you've got a lot of depth now. And if you're bringing in Sategna and Deion Burks as your slot wide receivers in a 4 wide receiver set, that's cooking, man. You got 2 guys that are able to make some plays after the catch and create a lot of open space for themselves because of their athleticism and route running ability. And then again, if you're running 5 wide, you might need 3 slot guys. And so that's Jacob Jordan, Isaiah Sategna, and Deion Burks all running in the slot. And then you got guys that you got a lot of big guys that you can run on the outside now, as you've added Giovanni Gibson and Keontez Lewis, and you've got Zion Kearney and Ivan Carrion. So it's going to be really fascinating to see how Ben Arbuckle, Emmett Jones want to deploy the wide receiver room. But based on what we've seen, some of the highlights we've seen of Ben Arbuckle's offense, some of the scouting that we've done, you see a lot of different personnel deployments, and they will run a lot more 4 and 5 wide receiver sets than what we're used to seeing at Oklahoma over the last, decade or more.
Yeah, it's been a bit since we've seen those real concepts. I mean, I guess that probably did see a little bit of that with Caleb when he was here, but yeah, it's been a while. I mean, Baker maybe, but for the most part, you had really good tight ends at that point. And unfortunately, right now we have a lot of unproven tight ends on our roster, and so to be quite honest, I know everyone's like, we need to go get a tight end. I'm just thinking to myself, can we just get like some good big wide receivers and just call it a day? Like, I mean, I love to give Caden Helm the opportunity to show up, Kay McIntyre as well. Hey, Vaughn Mitchell, we've got 3 of them. Let him get the chance. But I would prefer to play all these wide receivers and keep the mesh concepts going and just keep the defense like just confused. Let them try to bring somebody on the outside and do a quick blitz. If John Mateer recognizes a blitz is coming, he's probably going to be able to look at his wide receivers, have one of them do a quick switch, and then boom, immediately when the blitz comes, launch that thing real quick to somebody coming across the middle. That way he's eliminating that rush that's going to come, or he can step up and launch it quickly, go deep to one of his wide receivers down the sideline. I don't care. But the tight end position, sure, I know a lot of people are not pleased with Joe John Finley right now and the way that the tight end spot is going. But hey, in my personal opinion, I don't really care about tight end right now. I'm looking at this wide receiver room. We bring in 4 wide receivers with the young guys we have. Heck, throw Ivan Carrion in there a little bit at the tight end and have him come in and hedge folks, slide, bump them and then go to the outside and catch a pass. Do that instead. I don't care about tight end anymore, John. I've lost interest. At this point. I want to see John Mateer cook with some wide receivers.
Well, and here's the thing. If you don't have a legit difference maker to add in the transfer portal, why add one? Just to add one. To me,
just do stuff just to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't just bring in a guy just to bring in a guy. That doesn't make any sense. I think Bauer Sharp could have had a much more fruitful season this year if he wasn't considered the number 1 option at tight end. But we've seen this team just bring in a guy just to have a guy. I'd rather go through some growing pains with the guys that you've got on the roster who were 4-star prospects in Caden Helms and Vaughn Mitchell, and a guy like Cade McIntyre, who is a very athletic dude and can make plays in the open field and in the passing game. He just needs more experience. All three of these guys just need experience. And what's the best way to get them experience? Well, not bring in a veteran that is, quote unquote, again, a progress stopper, someone who's going to take all those first team snaps and not allow you to get those guys on the field in spring ball,
right,
in fall camp, and early in the non-conference season. You just got to play these guys sometimes, and you got to put them out there, and you got to let them make mistakes, and you got to rotate them through and take advantage of what they can do in the passing game, because all three of those guys can make plays in the passing game.
Agreed.
Will they be great blockers right away? Probably not. But you don't need them to be great blockers in a spread concept system, right? What's the goal? You're trying to get people spread sideline to sideline, creating space and creating openings so that your run game has more room to work, and so that the wide receivers have more room to work in the pass concept as well. So don't just bring in a guy just for the sake of bringing in a guy. Again, you like Devon Mitchell, right? We liked Caden Helms coming out of high school, right? Just couldn't stay healthy, right? Cade McIntyre. A very underrated tight end prospect. So like the guys we have, roll with that. But the wide receiver room, man, it's starting to look really, really solid. Again, got to see what it looks like on the field come fall next year. But I like the pieces that they've added, a lot of high upside guys that's going to bring a lot of competition to the depth chart at wide receiver. We've got a depth chart for OU Navy. We'll give you our takeaways from that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.